Hello everyone, I hope you're all well and safe. My name is Rafael San Juan and I work in the digital platforms and IT innovation team within Iberdrola. Prior to moving to the IT department in Spain, I lived for 4 years in Glasgow, working in the deployment of smart meters within the UK program, where fortunately none of the Scottish accent stuck. Today's talk is on operational efficiency through innovation, and I'll give you my own view on how innovation can help build a culture that synergizes teams and areas. I first want to give you a brief company standing and tell you where we are at as a company. Then I want to go into our innovation process and I'll explain our internal and external structure. Then, since this forum is more interested in the concrete than on the theory, I'll give you some examples of innovation initiatives that have brought significant operational efficiencies to the business. And finally, I'll tell you briefly what our midterm plans are and why. So Iberdrola is one of the world leaders in terms of renewable energies. As of the first half of 2020, we had 35,000 employees distributed mostly between Spain, the UK, USA, Mexico, and Brazil. We had a reported earning of 5,000 million, as we say in Spain, or 5 billion elsewhere in Europe for the first half of this year. And we manage a portfolio of 33 gigawatts, that's growing to 58 gigawatts by the end of the year, mostly 71% based on renewable energies. Here you can see the distribution of the main countries in which Iberdrola operates, and then the 981 megawatts in Europe are broken down into these 34 facilities, most notable of which is in the northeast of Germany, and it's an offshore wind farm called Wikinger. We are historically a hydroelectric company that was the result of a series of mergers in Spain about 50 or 60 years ago. But 15, 20 years ago, the focus has always been in building onshore and offshore wind farms. There's some solar and there's other types of plants as well, but the focus has mostly been on renewable energies. We also operate coal and nuclear and other types of energy, but the majority of the portfolio is based on hydro, gas, and wind. The gas side comes mostly from our operations in Mexico, where practically all of the generation is done through combined cycles, but the rest of the world is focused on renewables. And because of that, we've gained a lot of experience in building and operating them. But is it enough? There are so many technologies upcoming nowadays, not just in the network side of the business, but also on the energy retailing, new market models that are appearing, technologies that can change our generation processes. Sometimes it's hard to keep up. So how do you stay afloat with such a fast pace and keep visibility of the important innovations? We keep a clear steer towards three key visions at Iberdrola. The first is that the new utility industry is going to be a customer-driven one. As many industries in the past, it has been a relatively cold sector, but now it's warming up to its customers. We offered products tailored to usage. We offered discounts on weekends, peak and off-peak tariffs, web portals, and overall give customers an ever-growing access to their own consumption data. This customer centricity is horizontal to all business groups. And beyond having that customer always in mind, there is a key emphasis in operational efficiency, as the new electrified economy needs to be cost efficient. These then enable the company to grow organically, having more customers, higher margins, and then being able to invest more into research and development. And the link that joins the growth, the operational efficiency, and the customer focus is innovation. You hear innovative culture a lot these days, but for us, the meaning of innovative culture just means innovate, but in an organized and consistent manner. So how do you get organized for innovation? You follow a framework. This shows all the organizations that are linked to the Iberdrola group, which are quite a few, and the question should be, where should an innovation department sit? The answer is everywhere. In Iberdrola, we have a decentralized innovation model, which means there's a hub for innovation in each business unit and in each geographical region, and this brings the hubs and internal accelerators closer to the employee experts, allowing for quicker innovation from concept to prototype. And even though all the innovation is done in the edge, in a way, as you can see on the business legs there. It's all channeled in through the same way to maintain a repository of activities under a centralized flag. This is independent of the source being internal or external. And the internal innovations are just a small part of the whole process. But before I go into the internal side, let me highlight and mention some of these. One of our key external links is with the education sector. Affiliations, partnerships, contracts, internships, forums, etc. can all help build a refreshing view of the future with young minds. Currently, the university program has 8 universities around the globe in close partnership. 2 are in Spain, which are the Comillas Pontifical University in Madrid and the University of Salamanca. In the UK, there's 1 in Glasgow, which is Strathclyde University. There's 2 in the USA, which are the prestigious Yale and MIT. In Mexico, there's the Monterrey Institute of Technology, or also the Mexican MIT. In Brazil, there's Pernambuco and Hamad bin Khalifa University in Qatar. The activities in these centers involve, in one way or another, approximately 300,000 people who are all interested in improving the energy sector. But as well as the university work, which helps us keep up with new important innovation and investigation projects that are coming up, there's also a wide focus on the now and what's going on in the industry today. This is important for us, and we strive to attend events like this and forums of all kinds to stay up to date and to make ourselves relevant in certain topics such as e-mobility or hydrogen. This is important not only for the information that you can gain, but also the people who can help you along with your solution or who are interested in buying or in helping with what you're doing. Events like this, which are a shame that have to be virtualized, give us a chance to interact and exchange quick views on topics that are interesting to each other. Going to international forums for us gives us a chance to review also and study if it's important to establish geographical innovation centers, like the one we have built in Qatar, for example. This is more than just a facility, and it's aimed at defining a lot of the infrastructure specifications and smart grids in the Middle East. I have personally lived through the pains of smart metering in Spain and deployment in the UK, and there are a large number of differences, especially on the communication side. So in these buildings, there are people testing things like the characterization of noise levels within the network that can determine which solutions are most suitable and what should the approach for the region be. This is for now the only innovation center that is open. It opened in 2018, and I'm not aware of new ones being opened, but I certainly wouldn't discard it. Aside from the universities, the forums, and the innovation centers, the other key external leg for Iberdrola's framework that might be a little bit different from other organizations is the startup program per sale. The program was set up in 2008 with funding of 70 million to invest in startups that hope to achieve the following goals. So to identify the key market trends for the company, to have access to new technology for awareness and changes in paradigms, having an inviting attitude towards outside innovations. And in order to attract this type of developments, what Iberdrola offers in exchange is access to a large ecosystem for potential synergies with other startups, the opportunity to trial solutions and polish them in a real-world utility, and even to seek investment from Iberdrola's venture capital. So these are some of the types of innovation solutions that we look for, but this constantly changes. So currently, the startup program has seen thousands of companies pitch their ideas. Some of these have turned into pilots and POCs, as you'll see in the next sections. Iberdrola's venture capital arm has invested 50 million so far in 10 different startups, creating very strong partnerships and having an important share in their companies. Investing in such a way shows our belief in companies that potentially could be game changers to the industry. Lastly, on the external front, within innovations framework, within Iberdrola's innovation framework, is the public startup challenges that are gathered from usually long-running problems to different business areas that are thrown to the public. These are usually challenging and require high degree of technical innovation to existing technologies. And on screen, you can see some of the challenges published in the last few months. So we had the resilience to weather events through both prediction and live monitoring. This was won by a Swedish company called Skycraft after competing with 131 different startups from 24 other countries. Dry cleaning of solar photovoltaic panels, mostly for countries in the Middle East, where responsible water usage is a must, although that's essentially everywhere, or should be. There's the shared charging solution for electric vehicles who don't own personal parking space. One in Brazil to identify new street lighting installations which may have not been reported by the authorities yet. Another one aimed to preserve marine mammal life in the Vineyard Wind Offshore Farm. This is an 800 megawatt offshore facility off the coast of Massachusetts. And some of the solutions range from self-driving solar boats to infrared cameras to pre-programmed drone flights. Then we also had a similar project for protecting bird species in cables for the network side of the business, when this was recently challenged. Another one was for efficient monitoring of vibration and noise and other variables for onshore wind farms. And I'll leave a link, since these slides will be shared in the end. I'll leave a link here to the challenges in case anyone is interested in applying. Moving on to the internal side of the innovation framework, we use our highest valued asset in terms of innovation, the employees. They are close to the main operational efficiencies in the business, and combined with empowerment and the recognition that we try and provide, this acts as a motor for innovation within the company. There is a process for categorizing and scoring the ideas that come from employees, and to the highest scoring ones, there's a process to carry out proof of concepts to ensure in a controlled and a small scale environment the practicalities of the solution, and more importantly, to really evaluate if this new technology will increase operational efficiency in the business. Once all is tested and the users are fully happy with the solution, there starts being talks about a wider project implementation, the required investments, and resource allocations to ascertain its correct completion. As I mentioned, most of the ideas come from the employees in different business areas, but the flow upwards needs to be efficient, and that is the first step. You cannot have thousands of ideas flowing through the same person who will have their own bias. So we introduced two important things. One is the means to submit an idea and to manage the ideas in a platform. And we invented something called Inventa, which stands for Internal Ventures Accelerator, to empower employee ideas and to get them voted by other employees, to have a peer filter and to encourage initiatives with the most support. There are also digital events done yearly. In fact, this year's is in 2 weeks, where outside speakers come to share their knowledge, and internal projects are also presented. And in these events, there's a call for ideas, as we named it, and employees participate as a challenge where they submit ideas, and there's prizes for the best 3 ideas that are voted. For people who to have great ideas, they need to understand the basics of technologies and the potential uses that are out there. So all of the information from the startups, the challenges, the forums, the workshops, the universities need to be put in an easy to digest format with something like tech pills. That way you ensure that idea creators from the business units have access to the knowledge and opportunities, that you consolidate pockets of expertise on things like IoT, blockchain, or data science, and you can match them with the right tech for each use case. It's also important that you're up to date with solutions, some of which you try and may fail, but you stay at top of the options. With so much innovation and information to manage, there's a need for a strict process of innovation that everyone must follow. Our process is based on the norm from INOR, UNE 166006, which is the Spanish equivalent to the international ISO 5600, and basically it covers the same aspects of innovation management. Having this wrapper really makes things work, as it's internally and externally audited. It ensures that workshops and tech pills information flows to the employees, that ideas are created, evaluated, scored, and managed. POCs are executed having a business plan and fact sheets, that sponsors and high level directors are aware at all times of progress, and that the conclusions and lessons learned are easily accessible to everyone. To summarize up to here, their innovation process should flow in a circular way, using what I've talked about in terms of open innovation with startups, with universities, and with other players in the industry. The main key thing to achieve good innovation is listening to our employees, especially those close to business problems. There must be then a very clean and agnostic way to categorize and score and prioritize the POCs or the pilots to ensure that adequate resources are destined to the relevant tasks. This is a global exercise of centralization in Iberdrola. Once a rough idea of what and where and how is drawn, there must be emphasis given to the economic side of things, where during the execution we can extrapolate if a new solution is going to be easy to implement and cost efficient to implement, or if it will require more effort than it will save. Once the POCs are finished, we review its execution, we draw lessons learned, and we ensure that a good record of it is kept and it's easily accessible to everyone. And we like to make videos and content that can be easily consumed and that explains what was done briefly. Lastly, there's a feedback loop side of things, having employees aware of what other work has been carried out previously in the business or in different geographies and groups. And that means that new POCs build on each other and advance rather than repeat. So now, focusing on the network side of the business, we only have assets in 4 geographical regions: Spain, USA, UK, and Brazil. And the other countries I mentioned in previous slides are either from retail activity or generation assets. As high-level figures, we have approximately 1.2 million kilometers of transmission and distribution lines, approximately 31 million supply points. The network side of the business generates over half of the profits for Iberdrola, and it's more or less evenly distributed between all of its geographies. Hence, a lot of our innovation efforts are in making this part of the business better, as it's also one of the more traditional ones. So moving on to specific use cases in networks, let's quickly start with 3 innovation projects within grid systems using blockchain. The first is Project Recorder in the UK, which was carried out together with National Grid and UK Power Networks. It was aimed at having better control of what comes online on the grid, what storage capacity is available, and in other words, to record the decentralized energy resources, hence its name. The intentions were primarily to have advanced tracking of network-connected assets for security and mapping purposes, and to have focus on tracking new storage and generation assets that come online. A shared asset register is an important first step in the process of integrating distributed assets and allowing them to play their full role in balancing the electricity system. Another innovation project using blockchain is Cryptotrust. It's an open source platform to ensure reliable information for compliance systems. Although it's built on a solution using the open source energy web chain, it can use any Ethereum-based blockchain. On top of it is a custom-made gateway to manage all the decentralized apps, such as Cryptotrust, with a final user-facing front end. This is actually a fairly simple platform, where the parties on the left are companies in need of official certification for their compliance systems from their subcontractors, and the ones on the right are certifying companies or auditors or lawyers whose role is simply to confirm that a certificate is valid and in order. So companies on the left benefit from each other, and contractors which have already gone through validations in terms of compliant certificates. And the companies on the right ensure that no fake certifications are being used. Companies who aren't accredited are working in things they shouldn't, and thus their reputation isn't hurt. Another project using blockchain was used to document energy certificate transactions in a decentralized way. The format is similar to things some of you might have seen previously, where the certificates are created directly from our information systems, our SCADA. The certificates are then traded and bought within the blockchain platform, and this provides an agile and tamper-proof and transparent way of managing certificates for renewable energy generation, allowing to track the ownership history of each certificate of the blockchain. This is all built with Energy Web Foundation chain, which is a non-profit organization focused on the acceleration of blockchain technology in the electricity sector. Other projects in the network business involve making line inspections more efficient. This was a project called Cartolidar, which trialed initially with a helicopter having infrared, LiDAR, and high-resolution cameras that were then mounted to a drone that was able to carry up to 14 sensors, with the idea of taking photos of the vegetation around the network assets and predicting its growth and essentially categorizing areas into high risk areas with priority for action and lower priority ones. Initially started a trial to do unmanned helicopter flights to avoid people climbing poles and having to do unsafe and slow field work that can be done much quicker with technology. This is also a cross use case, since we're applying this to wind turbine inspections as well. And in the renewable side of the business, we're saving about 4 million a year just by carrying out inspections in this way. There are many other cases with drones, especially in the renewable side of the business for solar, wind farms, and wind. But now moving on to artificial intelligence as a technology, a cool project that was carried out was image recognition of network assets from operators' inspection trucks. So it used a trained model with neural networks and a camera on the dashboard of a vehicle, so that whenever someone was sent on an inspection job, they would actually be inspecting the length of the line on their way. Another pilot that was carried out using artificial intelligence was one with ViaScience. It's a US-based company with whom we collaborate, and it has essentially a shared AI model where you have pooled resources from different suppliers, manufacturers, energy distributors, many stakeholders in a collaborative environment, and each of them provide information about asset life cycles, issues, failures, overcharges. In this case, it was transformers to predict the maintenance required for transformers and have predictive maintenance algorithms. And the fact that it had a pooled AI database means that the predictions are done much more accurately, and obviously you can get a lot more value of that. Lastly, just to touch on augmented reality and virtual reality, we've done quite a few things over the last few months and years. And on screen, this is actually a project from our generation business, where we developed a collaborative training solution. It's not specific to networks, although we've used similar things to networks. We have also have AR use cases, augmented reality use cases with people following cables that are buried, just with an AR application and tracing where the cables go. So moving on to smart cities, this is not necessarily a technology, and it's by no means a new concept, but I just wanted to highlight the importance of innovation in this field, which requires millions of assets, not just the vehicles themselves that you see there, but all of the sensors and potentially even traffic lights that will eventually be monitored and controlled through a smart city system. We have done pilots in electrifying bus services in Madrid. We have the city of Murcia and Madrid as well, taking good care of their consumption data. We're providing electric charging services as well. And it's all meant to build an ecosystem of a smart city where electricity plays a huge role. To wrap up, innovation for us, and I imagine many of you, is a driving force for change. The current energy market needs to change for the better. They say that money never sleeps, but technology also seems to never sleep, and it's hard work just to stay informed and up to date. And even harder for those who are working in the operation side of the business and don't have time to go out to forums or read a lot of white papers on new things. So it's very important to give them visibility of the information that is being gathered through a newsletter or videos and things like that. And the most important part to innovation is that feedback loop. So to ensure that lessons learned from previous POCs and pilots are built upon and not repeated. Also, consistency is key for innovation, since each use case and each technology employed is very varied, especially if you have different geographies. The core framework needs to be very static. You can follow an external management guide or build on some internal procedures, but it's important to have a very detailed and very strict methodology. We are also aware of the situation and the energy market, though less than most, has been hit by the COVID virus. This means that now, even more than ever, it's very important to find new innovative solutions to reduce costs of unnecessary human presence, promote efficient working, and things like that. And for us, the focus will keep being on operational efficiency improvements for most of our solutions and in all of our core innovation lines. These are full decarbonization of the industries, of the economy, and the activity that we need to integrate of new markets with smart grids and storage to potentiate the role of customers within the grid. So here's just a short list of some of the focuses that we have in mind for the next few months and years maybe. So VR and AR for safe training of employees, for remote assistance, for things like vegetation management, anything that requires augmented information. We'll definitely invest in this. Big data and machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is very wide and has thousands of potential uses to extract further insights from existing data, from meters, from sensors, from network assets, and from everything really. By far the most exciting field right now is image recognition with natural language processing, with the news of things like the GPT-3, which we'll be looking into. Then RPAs to robotize mechanic repetitive processes to create chatbots, voice assistants, integrations with smart speakers, just to name a few. IoT to understand our assets better, to minimize the routine inspections required, to have employees with wearable devices and to have connected employees. Mobility for the consumption of services everywhere, on smartphones, on tablets, on PCs, VR glasses now, even on vehicles, while still being perfectly connected. And the more out there ones, such as quantum, to predict weather patterns for wind generation or to simulate the grid conditions and prevent outages. These are just a few of the things that we'll likely be focusing on. And on top of keeping the strategic lines in focus, we'll pursue other options for branching out, as most of you will as well, with pilots in new markets, such as with electric vehicles, where we have already trialed vehicle-to-grid pilots, and where Iberdrola has a plan to install 25,000 electrical charge points by 2021. With the looming changes to the distribution network, where most of us won't be distribution network operators, we'll be the distribution system operators, enabling third-party storage and generation assets to be seamlessly connected to what needs to be a more robust grid. We have also done advanced work with microgrids and microgrid storage in particular for integrations of small rural areas to the medium power grid. And lastly, on the subject of hydrogen, we're paying attention to the sector and the technology as it could potentially change the world. We have already started works on a project with the biggest fertilizer company in Spain called Fertiberia to provide them with hydrogen for chemical processes through electrolysis and powered by a 100 megawatt solar farm. And just to finish, I hope you enjoy and learned a few things about Iberdrola, and thank you so much for listening.